in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly, the final part of the final part of the last days.
This is the end of the world. This is the end of the world.
Hello and welcome to the Last Days live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently battling boredom, loneliness or anxiety by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as the apocalypse unfolds. How are we all this morning? Well, it's morning again here in Croatia. Morning as well for Gerhard, who hails from Germany. Good old Germany, no less. So, morning, Gerhard. We also have Vancouver, Canada, represented. I'm taking a nap before it starts. Well, Saul, wakey, wakey. Rise and shine. It's time to join the Last Days live stream. California is represented. Joelle Brown is here with us. Apparently Tony Morris is at it again, giving my videos and live streams thumbs down. We also have Nesbo, good morning from a warm and wonderful UK, sending lots of positivity out to the Cedars community. Good grief, are we a community now? In a non-culty way, gosh. Eric Larson says, hello, lovely people. Hello, Eric. Eric is a moderator of the YouTube live chat, so don't cross him or he will rain down fire on you. Steve Thu says, good afternoon from Australia. Let's see here. We have Hayden Honeywood saying, hey, everyone. We have the Philippines represented. Amazing. I just love hearing about exotic locations. I mean, obviously, the Philippines isn't exotic to everyone. I'm sure it isn't exotic to people who live in the Philippines. But to me, it is. And it's just always nice to hear about distant locations, tuning into the live stream or watching my videos. By the way, let me know what the sound and audio is like. Because it has been known to fail me at times, and I've lost my place going through the comments. Here we are. Mad Jock 2112 says, good morning from Scotland. I love that name. It immediately tells me something about you, Mad Jock. Hope everyone is well. Joelle says, these live streams are a true highlight in my week. Thank you. Well, it's really good to hear that. You'll notice, by the way, that today's live stream, I've slightly changed the camera angle, and it's because I'm in the middle of filming for the third convention rebuttal, and I don't want to disrupt where my camera is. So I've just positioned the camera. Now, hang on, let me just... Yeah, my OCD's kicking in because it's not level. So I've just positioned my webcam somewhere else so as not to interfere with where the camera is. Steve Thu says, I'm looking forward to the show with some incredibly triggering comments from Arthur. That's my least favorite part of the show, Steve. Speaking personally, the show would not be the same without them. I suppose that's true. And let's not forget, this show is about fluffy creatures. Yes, we do actually. One thing that a lot of people get confused over is, what is the point of the Last Days live stream? Well, first and foremost, especially if you happen to be watching as a YouTube reviewer, we're in the business of talking about pets and cats in particular. It's a cat video, basically. So you don't need to watch anything else from this point forward. I have made it categorically clear for any YouTube reviewers that the Last Days live stream, despite the apocalyptic overtones, is purely about cats. Saul Goodman is in Vancouver. Hello, Saul. Gosh, is it showing the comments properly? My thing seems to be failing me. Let me no, it's okay. It seems to have broken down a little bit. Let's see here. There we are. Okay, Bondi Media. Okay, the comments are working again. They were briefly not working. Looks like the old days in front of a bookcase. Yes, my very first, well, not my first, my very first videos. My very first videos were in front of bricks and mortar, which was my apartment at the time. There are basically kind of phases of the Seeders channel. So there's the bricks and mortar phase, which was the beginning. There was then the drywall phase. There was then the bookshelves, which ran for a long period. And then the bookshelves kind of morphed into the bedroom phase, because I was basically forced into the bedroom because of having children. But I did do the occasional video in front of the bookshelves, only I had to book the time to film where the children would normally play. And then there's the bunker phase. So there's different phases of the Seeders channel, which I'm sure many of you realise. Julie Douglas says, good evening from Australia. Hello, Julie. Yes, this particular slot, what for me is Wednesday morning, is kind of primarily with sort of, I guess, Europe and Australia in mind, because here in Europe it's the morning, it's the morning shift, the morning show, but it also helps Australia tune in because the Saturday show is difficult for Australians to watch, and whereas Australians have difficulty watching the Saturday, the Saturday show is difficult for Australians to watch, and this show is difficult for Americans to watch. But we still have Americans watching. In fact, we have a Mexican watching. Roy Stonerook, good morning from Mexico. Hello, Roy. Let's see. Bondi, I've already shown Bondi, but time to sleep in Cali, USA. Lloyd's voice is lulling. Oh, I do apologise. Right, Steve says sound and video nice and clear, but Saul says out of sync. So hopefully it's just one of those things where it will correct itself over time. I do apologise if there are any technical difficulties. Welcome to Tyler in Minnesota, and also welcome, I've got to be careful here, to Efthimi Lazarou from Greece. Wonderful. Taiwan. Well, there we go. That's what I was saying. Lovely to see such diverse locations, which in a way is testament to the fact that the Jehovah's Witness religion leaves its mark on lots of countries. Not as many countries as they tend to make out. They obviously like to say that the religion is in every part of the world. That's not strictly true. It's in lots of parts of the world, but not all, as I've mentioned repeatedly on my channel. In any case, we must now go to the book reading part of today's show. I am reading Exiting the JW Cult, a healing handbook for current and former Jehovah's Witnesses by Bonnie Zeman, who is herself an ex-JW, and I have actually interviewed her on the show. I've decided to read from chapter 6 of her wonderful book. The chapter is titled Thinking of, Process of, and Adjusting After Exiting. We are up to page 27. In our last show, we were dealing with some challenges and accompanying feelings that many feel while exiting the sect, and we continue with the chapter. These are some of the daunting challenges and considerations you may face, with even more daunting consequences for acting upon them, meted out by a harsh, judgmental and punitive governing body. Thus it is really important that you do enough research and give serious thought to what you learn before taking the big step to set yourself free. Make time to develop a strategic plan to prepare yourself and your loved ones if you decide to unshackle yourself from the chains of this sect. A few things that might help you with the above stage of thinking about exiting, and then we have another bullet list. bullet point list. I may not make it all the way through, but let's give it a go. No, you are not the only one who has seen all the cracks in the Jehovah's Witness organization and considered leaving. Take this opportunity to read books, blogs, websites authored by people who have already made their exit from the sect. Check out documentaries and YouTube videos where you will see and hear other people who have lived as Jehovah's Witnesses and hear about their experiences of exiting to freedom. It is always a comfort to know you are not alone and that others have navigated the path before you. There are thousands walking it with you right now. I would just add to that and say that I think it's also important to not obsessively check out XJW content, but I think it's really important to reinforce the reasons for leaving, because otherwise it's very easy to slip back into the organization when tragedy strikes and when things like the coronavirus happen. If you know that stuff, all of the indoctrination leaves its mark on your subconscious, so you need to give your brain the tools it needs to fight that stuff off. Know that you do not have to obey the orders of the governing body or their representatives, the elders. You do not have to appear before them and justify or explain anything if you do not want to. You can refuse their request to present yourself before a judicial committee and be interrogated and preached to by them. It could mean that you will be disfellowshipped, but you will probably be disfellowshipped anyway if you attend their judicial hearing. No, the majority of people who leave the sect do not return, indicating that they remain at peace with their decision to leave. No, most who leave the sect make decent lives for themselves outside of the JW organization without falling into the clutches of any demonic forces or turning to a life of debauchery, as JW.org preposterously claims. No, people in the supposedly big bad world out there are generally just as good and just as kind as Jehovah's Witnesses. The ubiquitous badness of the world is another of the many deceptions of JW.org. The governing body wants you to be afraid of people in the world so that you will remain in the tight bubble of the organization. I am reminded of the words of Christopher Hitchens: human decency is not derived from religion, it precedes it. Most Jehovah's Witness converts were good people before they converted. It is not being a Jehovah's Witness that makes people good. There are so many decent, loving, kind human beings in the world. Don't worry that you are moving away from good people whose goodness toward you actually seems to be conditional on you remaining a JW, and won't find good people with whom to associate in the world. You will. Humans are wired to be decent unless some terrible trauma or neglect interferes with their innate human decency. I would agree with that. I think I'm not one of those people who says that evil doesn't exist. I think that there is such a thing as an evil person. I've seen enough examples of that in my lifetime to know that there are evil people. But I think that from an evolutionary standpoint, it's beneficial to be good to other people. It's you're not going to last long in life if you're just mean and horrible to everyone, because they're just going to respond in kind. So there are evolutionary advantages, or you might say social advantages to being a good person. Know that although you have been indoctrinated to believe it is a sin to leave the sect, and that by leaving you condemn yourself to death at the Battle of Armageddon, it is just not true. You may have noticed that their Armageddon keeps being delayed. I left around 1980 and have not yet been destroyed. You have been bombarded with these threatening, fear-inducing false ideas. You are not committing a sin to change your mind. The human mind was made to explore, discover, adapt, and change. You will not die because you change your mind. You will be subject to the normal vicissitudes of life just like everyone else, but death due to leaving a sect is not one of them. Such ridiculous threats are another desperate attempt by the JW organisation to keep members from leaving when they discover the truth about the truth. Know that what you are contemplating won't be easy, but it will be so worth it to reclaim your one and only life, to reclaim your right to decide what you value, what you believe, to make your own choices, choose your own friends, and to live each sweet day free. However, if the decision to leave means you will be cut off from minor children who still need you as a parent, you may want to seriously consider simply becoming inactive until they have reached a certain level of maturity and capacity to understand what is happening in the family. I have been reading from Exiting the JW Cult, A Healing Handbook for Current and Former Jehovah's Witnesses by Bonnie Zeman, available on Amazon. I'm almost 99% confident. So, what an astonishing chapter, and let's add our green room to the show. Welcome Sasha and welcome Kim.
Hey guys.
How are you doing, and what do you think of what I've just been reading, because you seem to be listening along?
Brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant. I really love the way that in that book Bonnie redefines boundaries, and not just redefines boundaries, but also redefines how happiness can come from setting those boundaries. And I know we've spoken about this many times before, but breaking out of that witness mold actually brings real happiness. And yeah, I thought that was a brilliant chapter. Thanks for sharing it.
It was, yeah. Your thoughts, Kim?
Yeah, I just thought the point about, that reaching out and finding out that you're not alone is a big thing. When I first woke up, I couldn't say the word John Cedars, for goodness sake, without nearly, having a heart attack. But when you sort of get out of your comfort zone and you start to realize that, you're in a cult, which I also didn't acknowledge in the first place, and start to see other people's experiences and research and get educated, it definitely helps.
Absolutely.
John
And many
Cedars.
thanks. Shout out to Bondi Media. Made you read 3 times. Now get to work. Yeah, I've read lots of Bondi's comments. Thank you so much for that very kind super chat. I probably noticed that I had a lot to say about that, and maybe more than I usually say when I was reading Take Back Your Life, because obviously this is closer to home now. Take Back Your Life is more for cults and abusive relationships generically, whereas this is specifically targeted at JW. So it's just some really good advice there, and it's really encouraging to know that there are resources available. I've also obviously written a book, kind of a self-help book for people leaving, but the advantage of Bonnie's book is that she is actually a licensed mental health professional, so she has a lot of professional insights to bring to the table. So definitely recommend that book.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make too, that it's really vital to use the help of professionals who are trained to help us extricate ourselves from the cult, but never underestimate the power of peer support or group support that we all have in what we might call the ex-JW movement, that we're all there for one another, and we're all there to support one another, and our journeys parallel one another, and yet at the same time they're very unique. So don't be afraid to reach out to people within the movement and just get that support that we all need. Otherwise, it's very difficult to do it alone.
Indeed. Sasha, could you just angle your camera down a little bit?
Yep. Don't you want to look up my nose?
I want to see more of you and less of your ceiling. Renato says the best thing about finding good people in the world is that they'll be friends with you no matter what you believe. Yes. Yeah. Friendships are possible on the other side. Let's see here. Aaron King says, I can't wait until Jehovah's Witnesses actually get found out. I'm going to just tell my family I told you so. Isn't that kind of hard to describe it. It's kind of that thing that's always just beyond the horizon, where you're hoping the organization is going to get discovered and you're going to be totally vindicated and the world's just going to know and everything's just going to be settled, and it never quite happens. That's kind of one of the most frustrating things about being an ex-Jehovah's Witness, isn't it?
Yeah, and yet there are people waking up every day, every week, every month, as we know. We see it every single time we log on to Survey or some of the other support groups. We see people are waking up. So maybe as an organization, they might never be fully exposed, but individuals are waking up in huge numbers. And I suppose that's what we can take. And can I draw attention to your illustration you used in your book too, Lloyd, about how we can then help people, the illustration of the bridge.
Yeah.
And can you share that to those who might have read it?
Yeah, if I can remember it. So I included that in my book, having mentioned it in a video, I think. And the way I liken the kind of me physically and mentally in Jehovah's Witnesses, and then POMO, physically out, mentally out Jehovah's Witnesses, are kind of two sides of a river. So on one side of the river, you have kind of the JW camp, and on the other side of the river, you have the ex-JW camp. And the more devout you are, the more fanatical almost you are with the Jehovah's Witness religion, the further away from the bridge you'll be, because there's a bridge between. And the more, you could say, healed you are, and the more it's totally behind you, the further away from the bridge you are on the other side. But on the bridge are people who are trying to help others across, because every now and then Jehovah's Witnesses will stray towards the bridge, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Perhaps they might search for something on Google and something entirely different than what they expected pops up. Do you want the hand? Do you want there to be a hand there to begin with to help you over? And will that hand be of someone who's being kind and compassionate and understanding and presenting you with factual information? Or conceivably, might that hand be of someone who's quite very demeaning and mocking you and presenting wrong information? And in my own case, obviously, the hand that reached out was kind of collectively that of Paul Grundy and Ray Franz, you know? So yeah, that's more or less my bridge analogy, I think.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And the fact that these hands are extended with dignity and transparency and truth, they're not extended with anger or in a undignified manner. And that's the way that we need to be to help people who are starting to wake up. We don't need to bombard them or berate them or make them feel silly, but just to be there to support them.
Indeed. So, what I thought we might have at this point is a little bit of culture, a little bit of sophistication, because more than anything, we don't seem to have a certain Romanian with us. I think what we need at this point is some poetry.
Well, again, I apologize if it doesn't flow too well. I literally wrote this down in the last 10 minutes before we logged on. So it kind of ties in with
lack of preparation there, Sasha.
I know.
Surely I have to dock points for that.
Take it out of my pay. Oh, wait. All right, here we go. New light dispensed from Jehovah, from his inspired word, is a theme we've had repeated. Yes, so often we have heard that his appointed channel, one so faithful, so discreet, deciphers these divine messages whenever they do meet. For God chose one religion alone to act as his mouthpiece. All others that claim to speak for him should just be quiet and simply cease. Yes, the Almighty chose a man named Russell to bring man to his senses, to help humanity return and to rectify our many offences. No matter how many errors the religion that he started, They expect their members to ignore such, for to them God has imparted the only way to gain salvation. Yes, in other words, to avoid the coming apocalypse destruction, the feast for the heavenly birds. The JW religion eagerly prays for such genocide to hasten. They look forward to such extinction, to see the devastation. Yet no matter how disturbing such genocidal teachings may be, let's remember that the mindless drones are just like you and me. We once proclaimed this very same nonsense. Yes, we believed. Yet now we've all expanded our minds, and clearly we do see that we were part of a toxic cult led by simple-minded men. Yet now we've learned to see beyond and will never be ensnared again. Yes, we see life in all its color and humanity as a whole. We proclaim with joy that life is great outside of the JW fishbowl.
Very nice. Actually, considering you came up with that right on the hoof, that's right up there, I think.
It kind of tied in with what you're reading. Oh, well, thank you.
Sometimes we do our best work under pressure, don't we? Unfortunately, we are being trolled at this point by our co-panelist. He's in the live chat. I mean, goodness knows what's going on in his mind. Yeah, he wants to be in the live chat, but he doesn't want to be on the show. Maybe he's just scared. He's a scaredy cat, potentially. Because he's not going to be doing Sing Along with Arthur. So
not good enough,
Arthur. Should be very scared. Because I've got a bone to pick with Arthur. I have written him a song and I haven't heard it yet.
Oh,
so
Arthur.
Interesting. So there's some bad.
Are you hiding, Arthur?
Renato says, "Great improv, Sasha."
Thanks, mate.
It was very in keeping with the convention joy.
Oh,
thing.
yeah, always rejoice, indeed.
Yes.
How
those rebuttals going, Lloyd?
Oh, and now he's here. They're not going badly, actually. Well, actually, they're going very well when you look at the views. I'm really pleased with how many views the rebuttals are getting. Obviously, they're hard work to put together, so it's nice to be rewarded with views. And I'm currently working on the third.
Do you know, Lloyd?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I don't know if you saw the post on Reddit just in the last few days. People were saying, how good is Lloyd's rebuttal? It's much better than watching the actual convention. So I think there's a substantial amount of PMOs watching, and I'm sure they're very, very grateful for your work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of a mad scramble to, wherever possible, get the rebuttals out before they're discussed by congregations. I just about managed it, I think, in most cases for the Friday. For the Friday morning. The Friday afternoon, there was just no way I could do it quickly enough. But for the Saturday morning, I'm aiming to get it out by Friday, which will be in time for when they discuss it on the Sunday. So that's kind of what my aim is. I must say that the Saturday morning so far isn't as chock full of stuff to comment on as the Friday afternoon was. I mean, the Friday afternoon was just crazy with nonsense, but still lots of things to respond to, including this bizarre dramatization where they follow the progress of a Bible study and and use this dramatization to teach the way that witnesses should be indoctrinating people and basically manipulating people. So very interesting. We are joined by a certain Romanian who seems to be on the run from the authorities, presumably for crimes against music.
Good morning, everyone.
Arthur.
Good morning.
I'm a bit on the run because I had some administrative duties to take care of this early morning.
Have you been bailed from the police station? Because I understand you were arrested on crimes against music.
Well, I received a couple of days ago a subpoena by the Watchtower Parody Authority, and I had to sign up for an interview at the Bucharest Bethel last week.
Okay.
and well, it happened. It happened very quickly, and actually, I'm all clear now.
So there's a
Can you
little
give us
bit of tension on today's show, Arthur, because it turns out you are shunning Kim and her suggestions for a song. How do you respond to those accusations?
Well, I'm not shunning anyone. I'm not rejecting anyone's suggestions for songs on the last day's live stream. However, the circumstances prevent me this
He's being accosted by
prevent me this very moment to perform.
Okay.
That's okay. Hey, can you give us a bit of a panning tour of where you are at the moment, maybe? Okay.
Okay.
Downtown Romania.
Well, it's not very downtown. It's actually one of the neighborhoods which are towards the exit of the city.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, it's the road to Hungary. So this part is actually part of the E60 European road.
At the risk of stating the obvious, Arthur, may I just kind of point out that you're wearing your mask incorrectly?
Yeah, I took off the mask. I took off the mask to be able to speak loud and clear.
You might get arrested for that.
Just so long as you're not confused as to how it's worn, because I can tell you that's
Yeah,
definitely not
it's
how
like
it's
that,
worn.
you know?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, there's our,
Correct.
There's our thumbnail.
Yes, actually, that mask or something a little bit more robust would come in handy during most sing along with Arthurs. Well, thank you for joining us on your travels. If you do manage to make it back to your apartment, jump on again, and if the show's still in progress, we'll have you on again.
Alrighty.
Okay, take care, mate.
Take care.
See you. So that
I'm still shunning him now.
Yeah.
But nice of him to make an appearance and give some response to the very pressing accusations about him ignoring Kim's lyrics.
And doesn't it really prove that we're still part of a worldwide brotherhood from all corners of the earth? Sorry, people.
You see, do you feel you need to take over Arthur's role by being triggering any?
No, I'll never step on that.
I can do that for you if you want to. I noticed earlier on when I was listening, Wayne Bruce asked a very pressing question. His question was,
hang on,
is it at 4:44 exactly?
Oh, that's very helpful. Well, actually, no, the time won't be the same. Actually, if you want to
I can
answer
read
it,
it.
and I'll try and find it. Yeah.
It says, actually, this is for you, Lloyd. He says, Lloyd, we got baptized saying that the governing body was God's spokesman. Now they've changed it. Am I legally still part of it?
Yes. Well, it depends what you mean by legally. Logically, in terms of kind of the law, or at least in terms of human rights, you should be able, or anyone should be able, to leave any religion without any ramifications whatsoever. If we're pinning everything on what people's human rights are, because according to Article 18 of the Universal Declaration, as I've repeatedly argued, you have the right to believe and follow a religion, and you also have the right to leave any religion that you choose. When it comes to the ever-changing baptism requirements, or whatever requirements the organisation places on you, unfortunately, the way the organisation sees it is that you're held to it, even if the religion that you joined ends up being very different from the one you leave. I mean, if you think about it, the teachings themselves change over time. I think I was baptized under the provision that you pledge yourself to the organisation in 1990. But how do we define the organisation? By 2012, they changed it so that the faithful slave was no longer all anointed ones, but was just the governing body. So they change out. They can change everything, and as long as you have been baptized, regardless of what the actual oath was, they consider it that you're still a Jehovah's Witness and therefore liable for shunning. That's wrong, clearly. But as far as the law is concerned, I mean, you're probably better positioned than me to comment as a retired lawyer, Kim. But it's very difficult bringing action against a religious organisation, because what tends to happen is the authorities say, well, this is a religious matter. Religions can basically have their own rules, and they can decide who gets to continue within the club.
I think that, if you looked at it from a legal point of view, it would be a very difficult argument to say that there was a contract, therefore something to break, because as everybody knows that when you actually become a Jehovah's Witness, even if you're born in, you don't know the full extent of the organisation, you don't understand all of the rules, and you don't know the terms and conditions. So technically, according to contract law, it wouldn't be binding anyway. Interestingly, I've been doing a little bit of research. I think more the issue is about human rights, that you have the right to leave a religion, and where, the religious argument about, it's their religion, they can do whatever they want, that's fine, but they cannot override the law of the land, excuse me, and therefore human rights come first, so people shouldn't be shunned. But interestingly, do you know the Catholic Church also have the same law in their canon, which is their canon law, that you can, if you're baptized Catholic, you can do whatever you want. You can go and join another religion, you can become atheist, you can do whatever, but you're still classed by them as Catholic. But you're not shunned, and nothing happens.
Yeah,
I think
so. They didn't breach human rights there.
I think when it comes to human rights, it's difficult to apply. I mean, it's frustrating that Jehovah's Witnesses appeal to human rights when it suits them. So when they're fighting for freedom of worship in a country where they're being persecuted, they'll appeal to, let's say, the European Convention on Human Rights, but they won't see the hypocrisy of them appealing to human rights while denying human rights to their members. The difficulty is, as far as and this is the way I've kind of settled on things, the difficulty is that religions don't sign up to human rights. States sign up to human rights. So
That's exactly
Jehovah's Witnesses didn't sign the Universal Declaration. The United States did, or Australia did, or the UK did. So that puts the emphasis on the state to not support or endorse groups or organizations that violate people's human rights, in my view. So I think
that's where I'm a full believer that this business, it doesn't matter what we discuss, whether it's child abuse, notifying, the Australian Redress Scheme, which I've banged on about a lot, the human rights aspect, it always comes down to the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses think that they're going to tell a government how it is, and that's fundamentally what I have a problem with.
Yeah,
Indeed.
and doesn't it also cash in on the very fact that they believe that their authority comes from a being or an entity that's far above anything else, which is why, for example, even if the baptism questions change, they say at the end of the day, the organisation and Jehovah are interchangeable terms. They feel that they're one and the same with God. And so naturally that then flows on to an arrogance that they believe they could tell the state or tell governments how to operate, or that they have superiority over the laws of the land.
Indeed. Yeah, it's deeply frustrating, and really the solution, as far as I'm concerned, is for governments to identify organisations that do violate human rights and say, we're not giving you tax exemption, and we're sure as hell not going to let you be a charity. Unfortunately, I really do feel we're just at the wrong point in history where not enough thought is given to this, and there is way too much deference by governments toward religion, especially in the UK. I mean, I can't really comment on Australia, but in the UK, it just feels as though anything that manages, once you manage to get over the line of convincing people that you're a religion, anything goes. And Scientology, by the way, hasn't managed to do that. Scientology has been denied various statuses that other religions have been granted. But once you can convince people in the UK that you're a religion, you basically get treated with kid gloves. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And that's one reason why I've basically fallen under criticism by some XJWs for my thoughts on the Charity Commission, because I honestly, I'm sure that there are well-meaning people at the Charity Commission, and I'm sure the Charity Commission is generally well-meaning and trying to do what it can. But the Charity Commission doesn't have the powers it needs to identify groups that are violating people's human rights and say, it doesn't have the powers to say you don't get to be a charity anymore. Basically, the list gets given to the Charity Commission of which groups are charities, and they just have to do their best to regulate, and which is kind of the wrong way around. It's putting the cart before the horse. So,
yeah, I think that's been traditionally the attitude in Australia as well. However, I do believe that in more recent times, that attitude is slightly changing. And I think that I certainly know Senator Ruston, sorry to bang on, but Senator Ruston has come out recently and said it's not for Jehovah's Witnesses to decide whether or not they'll join the redress scheme, that they must. So her language and the language of the government has changed just in recent times, and I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of something different for Australia.
I was actually going to ask you if there are any updates, Kim, on the redress scheme.
Well, no, not at the moment. We had been told that there was some sort of preliminary announcement going to be made, but unfortunately, I don't know if everyone knows that COVID's just broken out a little bit more in Australia. It's quite bad in actual fact. There's quite a number of quite a large number for Australia. I'm not the United States is much bigger than us, but for Australia, we've had quite a bit of an outbreak, and it's been in nursing homes. And unfortunately, it's killing quite a lot of our older residents. And unfortunately, their families are not able to visit them. It's just really distressing. So the government's got their hands full really, really badly at the moment with some issues in COVID. Yet again, Victoria's not playing ball. But it's also a problem in Sydney, where I live, so and where Sasha lives. But so yeah, at the moment the government has sort of held on it because there's all sorts of other issues that need to be addressed. So not at the moment, but you know, the senator has, or the senator's office has been responding to people contacting. I'm sure she's pretty sick of me, which is great, because I'm a massive believer. I don't know if you'll understand this, but in Australia we have a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so I think that the more people that get on board and just, you know, tell your story, it doesn't have to be a long thing. We're trying to demonstrate that this is not just about an organisation who refused to join a redress scheme. This is an organisation that hurt people, and it's, you know, predominantly about the victims of child sexual abuse, but it's also others. There's just, the more you open and look at it, the more you realise how bad this organisation is, and they don't deserve charitable status. So if we can, you know, portray the picture, and not that it's just an Australian issue, this is a worldwide issue. If we can continue to educate and show the government exactly what sort of organisation they are. In Australia, the Charitable Commission have the ability to remove their status, and I don't know what that would mean for Watchtower, but it certainly would put a spanner in their works, and you know, it certainly would make a lot of people who are current peonies, or whatever you call them, open their eyes and go, hang on a minute, why has the government taken the charitable status? Of course, there's the whole persecution, and this is, you know, Babylon and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, it's not about taking Watchtower down necessarily, but if you could take out 100 people or 1,000 people or 10 people, it would be worth it. So
that's a very good point you make, Kim, is that, just to clarify, even if we've got any believing witnesses who happen to be stumbled on this channel and watching, we are not out to try and take people's faith away or tell people what they should believe in, or necessarily take their religion away. The whole purpose that actions such as the Royal Commission and then the Charity Commission investigation into whether they qualify, the whole reason for that is because vulnerable members of our society need to be protected, and that's the reason why. There's flaws, in the policies and procedures of the organisation. So if people still want to believe whatever they want to believe, that's fine. We're not trying to change the religious edicts of an organisation. We're just trying to protect the vulnerable and to draw a light or shine a light on the areas that need attention.
Absolutely.
If I understand correctly, one of the things that, because Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia put out a statement making their case as to why they feel that the redress scheme doesn't apply to them. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the things that they pointed to was the very comparatively or relatively small number of people who've stepped forward who would want to be involved or would want to benefit from the redress scheme. One thing that we've kind of suggested or offered on the show, or specifically you have offered on the show, Kim, is to represent people who want to file for potential benefits from the redress scheme. How has that gone?
Yeah, so we have had a couple of people contact. I do know of one that is actively doing some work at the moment to get their application in, which is fantastic. He's very brave. Some of the stuff that he's been through is incredibly traumatic, and the effects of it have been life-lasting. Every aspect of his life has been affected, which is extremely sad. So, there have been, that's been great. Obviously, hopefully there'll be some more people. The Watchtower didn't specifically say, because there were only little numbers we didn't join. What they said was that because of the smaller numbers, we can deal with the quantity by case basis. And they're trying to push it into the civil system. And that's where I really get drawn up, so I'm going to be careful not to raise.
In any case, it felt to me as though it was a very disingenuous thing to say, because one of the things that was highlighted during the Royal Commission was just how hard it is for abuse survivors to come forward.
Exactly.
If you feel as a Jehovah's Witness as though you're at risk of alienating yourself or in any way identifying yourself as opposed to the organization by trying to participate or by trying to benefit from the redress scheme, why would you apply? That's kind of the whole point, that people within the organization don't feel like they can come forward.
That's exactly, because you just don't do that, and you certainly don't take your brother to court. So basically eliminates anybody that's still in the organization because of that belief that they have. So
they created they very much created a hostage situation where people don't feel comfortable to put their hand up and to speak about these topics because of fear from the system, the bullying system, so to speak. So and I'm a massive believer that the government actually does want to do something about the organisation. I really, truly do believe that. And I think that the more people that tell the stories, the more people that write and talk about the harm that the organisation does, not just about sexual abuse or child sexual abuse, certainly about that, but any type of hurt or harm, the more they become aware, the more it gives them some ammunition to go, well, hang on a minute, we've got this. We're actually like feeding Angus Stewart, as they did back in the Royal Commission. They fed him information that helped him to put forward a good case. That's what all of us have the opportunity to do. We can all put our 5 cents worth in and we'll make $1.
Indeed. Well, again, just a reminder that if anyone wants Kim, who again is a retired lawyer, to assist you in pursuing redress, if redress were to ever become available, but it's important to, throw your hat in. This is one email address that you could use that would definitely find, if you were to email it, your email would find its way to Kim. We would make sure of that. So
I've also got a template letter. It's a very generic letter. Because I've had a lot of feedback from people saying, "Oh, I'm not very good at writing letters. I don't know what to write. I really want to get on board with Senator Ruston, etc., etc. But I don't have the time, B, have the ability, or whatever the case may be." So what I've done is I've put together a little template of a letter that people can put in and send to the Senator's office. It's pre-addressed, pre-everything. So if anyone's interested and wants that, contact the email.
Thank you very much indeed. We've had
that's not there anymore.
I can put it there. Hang on a second. There's the email address. There we go. We have had, quite a number of comments. Here's an interesting one. When are they going back to meetings? This is an interesting one because if you've been following, I haven't really been commenting on the governing body updates. What's happening is they keep posting what they call governing body updates on JW.org, in which a governing body member will stand in the studio and will basically praise the organisation for how well it's dealing with COVID-19. That's essentially the purpose behind it, to suggest that only in Jehovah's organisation can you find responsible leadership when it comes to COVID-19. And one of the things they've made very clear is that regardless of sort of the local, shall we say, latitude afforded to meetings, they are enforcing this policy of, no, we're continuing with our social distancing, we're continuing with doing things over Zoom until we feel this pandemic is under control. I actually think that's a fairly responsible position to take, because I agree that, you know, governments will have their own things in mind when it comes to relaxing social distancing that aren't necessarily in the interests of everyone. I do think, however, that it's interesting to see where this goes long term. It almost feels, I've said this before, it feels as though the organisation is almost seeing how far it can go with not using Kingdom Halls altogether. Because if they were able to get rid of Kingdom Halls, this would obviously be a massive cash boost for them. So I'm fascinated to see whether this ends up being just a dry run for kind of a more permanent arrangement in the future, where most, if not all, Kingdom Halls end up being sold, and depending on which congregation you're in, Jehovah's Witnesses can expect to be doing their meetings over Zoom. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And of course, they will say that this is blessings from Jehovah if that's the way that they want to go, that maybe Jehovah has seen the need to liquidate assets and divert it to more important topics or projects. And we could foreseeably see them meeting together, say, once a month at the Assembly Hall with a few meetings, or having a staggered arrangement where congregations meet once every month or so. Gee.
You're out of time there, Sasha. So did you have that little bell in the Theocratic Ministry School?
Yeah.
When the time was up, you'd hear a ping, and you'd have to finish as quickly as possible. Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of wonder with regards to what's going on with them not coming back to meetings. I think that it's part of the whole, you know, this is the time of the end thing. I think they think that people are going to come back, and it obviously is drawing some people back to the organisation, like, because they're fearful. And I think they're, you know, keeping the hype alive as long as they possibly can, so that, you know, this is the time of the end. Look how bad things are. And they also have that sort of that superior attitude of, you know, we know better because we're guided by Jehovah. We know better than the government. So just because the government says it's safe, you know, we rely on Jehovah to tell us that it's not safe. And every time there's a second wave, which is inevitably going to happen, they say, see, we know better than the government. So
when other churches have decided to meet together, and we see these devastating situations in the States, particularly, where churches have gathered together supposedly with divine protection or with infrastructure and air conditioning in place that's supposed to filter, and of course people come down with the virus. So of course that's playing into the mindset of witnesses, thinking that they've had divine direction.
We've even had an outbreak in Sydney, Our Lady of Lebanon at Granville, where you know, there was I think it was a funeral, I actually don't know, and there's been an outbreak, and that would be a very good argument for the witnesses that, oh look, see, Jehovah's looking after us.
Can I speak to the aspect of whether or not this means that the governing body or the elders are losing control over the flock? Because I think a lot of us initially thought that the less meetings, the less time the congregation is drawn together, the more opportunity for people to maybe fade out and to slip through the cracks. And if they were deciding to question their beliefs. We received a really nice email from somebody. I won't share his name because he's described himself as PMO, physically and mentally out. But he said that he's feeling an even greater sense of stress because the Zoom meetings, there's a great deal of accountability. He said so they're being he feels like they're being kept on the computer constantly. There's 2 meetings a week with the Zoom call, but then after that, there's meetings for field service. I don't know what field service is, where you have to get together. Then you break out into smaller groups, and then after the Sunday meeting, they split into discussion groups to discuss contents from the convention that had taken place, and that goes for another 6 weeks. So he said that basically it feels like they're actually being put into a higher state of control than ever before. And there's attendants who are assigned to check who's on. They look at all the faces that are there in the congregation. They have follow-up phone calls if somebody's missing. So far from it being easier to slip between the cracks, it might actually be harder for one at this stage.
That's the impression I'm getting, that actually people are. I mean, if you think about it, it's so Orwellian, isn't it? That they're not just saying, right, we want you to be in attendance on the Zoom call. They're even monitoring whether people's cameras are turned on, and that sort of thing is extremely controlling. So yeah, and this is what I mean in a way, that what they want more than anything is control. So if they can have the control without the kingdom halls, or at least in some cases without the kingdom halls, to free up more cash, because that's what they're already doing. They're already viewing kingdom halls as a commodity that they can liquidate to bring in more cash. So if they can do that on a larger scale and still keep the control, I don't see what's stopping them,
I think it'll come down to numbers, as they know they're going to lose some, but will they gain some back, and then will they be able to sort of maintain the status quo? I've been in contact with a couple of different types of people. There's a gentleman I'm in contact with. His wife is a witness, and he's not. And he's noticing that she's actually starting to slip away just a margin, that she's starting to sort of have a few little doubts, and he's having a bit more free conversations with her without her, jumping down. And so that I think that gap or that distance between the indoctrination definitely does have the potential for people to start to wake up and to ask questions. But obviously it depends on their circumstances. Being an unbelieving husband, it's not a full witness household. So I don't know if that would play a role. The other one that I know is a gentleman who's a PMO, fully awake, but PMO, and his wife obviously is, very, very headstrong witness wife. And and so he's really struggling mentally, really, really badly, because of that exact need to, have to be here, have to be there, have to do this, have to do that. And he knows it's not true. So he's living that really, really in between life, where he's not a witness, but he's not living in the world, and he's sort of almost living 2 or 3 different lives. And I think that has a lot of mental health impact. So shout out to all the PMOs. Look after yourselves, because I think it is something that can cause confusion.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Says, and PMOs have said they have to dress for the meeting, stand for the song, make sure their camera is on. Renato says, not only there are a lot of Zoom meetings, you're supposed to look the part, perfect clothing, and you better not turn off the camera or you're spiritually weak. It's just a terrifying prospect.
And you
have to make sure that you've got your badge on when the convention's on.
And very invasive as well when you're in your own home. It's one thing to kind of be bullied and bossed around when you're at the Kingdom Hall, but to be in your own home and not feel free to express yourself or to just not be there. I don't know. It just takes on a more sinister edge. Really.
Has anyone seen the ridiculous convention photographs posted by witnesses? If anybody ever trolls the JW inspirational Instagram account or any of those ones,
sometimes check that out.
Yeah, we've got witnesses who are watching the convention, who are dressing up, as you said, Kim, with the badge on and everything to watch the convention program in their own home, posting pictures of themselves with rubber gloves on, cleaning the toilet at lunchtime.
Oh, I did see that.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. I volunteered for food service, and they're in their kitchen making a sandwich. I volunteered for the cleaning department. Best life ever. Hashtag. I mean, it's just so. It's tragic.
Are they making bacon sandwiches at lunchtime and that kind of thing? Good grief.
Do they need to not? Can they not have a coffee during the session, or it's a really tough question.
Are they walking around their house with a sign saying "keep to the left"?
No. Please take your seat. Oh, that's hilarious.
Keep moving.
Yeah. The music has started. Please take your seats.
Oh, good grief.
And there'll always be that one who's singing off key in that home, just as there was at the convention.
And is there someone acting as an attendant to count how many spare seats there are?
No,
seriously, no. And what happens? Who's regulating that? Is there a parking attendant, and who's regulating not holding seats? It's chaos. I can't deal.
It was such a weird experience, the convention. So to think that people are kind of replicating that weirdness. I was on the chairman's office for the last few conventions where I was when I was living in the UK, and it was always fascinating because we were allowed to have the radio. We were allowed to be in on the radio network, and so you'd sometimes, just for sheer amusement, we'd tune in to the attendance channel and kind of laugh at how they were kind of taking everything so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
They really kind of see themselves as kind of cops, and suspect is moving along the concourse, and it's hilarious.
I can attest to that. Yeah, we used to be part of that. And if somebody came in slightly unshaven, must be an apostate infiltrating. Or honestly, they would follow them around.
Yeah.
I don't know. This has just made me laugh. I don't know. You guys obviously have met my husband. For those who don't know him, he's about 6'5" and 140 kilos. He's a big man, and everyone's generally very scared of him. And I never will forget, he came to an assembly. It was a Sunday morning. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to get out of bed. He was tired. He had to wear a tie, which is just, like worse than death for my husband. Anyway, he went to the convention. He drove the car in and parked it in the car park. And some attendant said to him, "Excuse me, brother, you're going to have to park it in reverse." You know how you have to reverse him? My husband just looked at him, got out of the car and kept walking. He didn't turn it around. And no one said anything to him. They're like, "Ooh."
Yeah. But I think
but the theory is you have to reverse him.
It's you tend to get on a power trip though, don't you? Yeah. I mean, I have done the attendance gig, and you tend to kind of think, yeah, I'm kind of a cop here, It's a bit like the mall cop mentality, isn't it? You're not really a cop, but you get to act like one.
Yeah.
And just order people round, even if it's something entirely trivial, like are they parked in reverse, or just astonishing. Thanks for the super chats, Lisa Burberry, and also Rianne. Very, very kind of you to support the channel. That's wonderful. And yes, just astonishing to think that the same levels of control that you expect at the convention are present in people's homes, and people are even trying to replicate the convention atmosphere, which was just bizarre to begin with.
It really reflects that very insular sort of goldfish bowl mindset and mentality, that was the most important thing in their lives, and they can't see outside of that routine or that.
Oh. Here's one. Steen1 says, "We were always told not to leave at lunch break, but every coffee shop had 500 people buying coffee." That was interesting because we had that in Manchester. It was kind of, there were different layers of rules, and it was kind of understood that it was impolite to leave the arena during lunch. But if you ever did leave for any reason, maybe you needed to go and draw out cash or something, what you'd see is Manchester city centre, because the arena was right in the middle of the city, absolutely sprawling with people wearing badge cards. So everyone was ignoring the rule, even though it was understood, you should really stay in the arena. Everyone was making a break for their freedom at lunchtime.
Yeah. Hey, Steen, I've got to say, Steen, I was probably one of the self-righteous attendants who was assigned to come into that coffee shop and maybe try and encourage you to come back into the auditorium. That was some of the jobs we were asked to do. That, again, policing people's freedom of choice. If they want to go to a coffee shop, they should be allowed to. But we were asked to go in there and encourage the brothers to follow theocratic direction and come back into the facility. So I apologize for the self-righteousness. Yeah.
Rianne says, Big Brother in your living room, just a small step till they watch you in the bedroom. Fair enough, yeah. And Nesbo says, the best thing about conventions was getting the binoculars out and trying to find your friend.
And then get their attention while you're doing the little wave. Like,
Yeah.
or texting them on your phone.
If it's a teenager with binoculars, they're not just trying to find their friends. They're doing
Future
research.
friends.
Research.
And yet all of this is no different. Like, we all felt like that was unique to our culture as JWs. But again, if we look at a parallel organization, the Mormons, I've been watching a bit of a documentary, and you look at their annual convention or conference, I think it's the general conference twice a year, it's exactly the same. And the way that the families would be dressed up and have to go along to the inane talks with a monotonous cadence and songs and content and all of that, but also the pressure it put on the families to have to go along to these programs. It's all part of that high control method textbook, you might say, that the religion's implemented.
Margaret Helena says, when the constant contact with the congregation is gone, first is scary, uneasy. First you experience fear, but after time you realize you're still breathing, walking, alive, you survived. And I think it's true that irrespective of the very Orwellian tactics that they're using on Zoom, let's face it, you're still not going to be love bombed in the same way over the internet as you would be at the Kingdom Hall. It's surely going to be at least a jolting sensation to no longer be required to go to the Kingdom Hall and meet with people. You just hope that at least some witnesses are taking this as their cue to kind of think, hang on, if I'm still in one piece despite not going to the Kingdom Hall twice a week, what else might I be able to get away with and still be in one piece, if that makes sense?
And for those who are in that sort of a situation, who might be sort of just deprogramming and maybe questioning things for the first time, or allowing themselves to think outside of the bubble, again, we make the offer that we're all there as peer support to help. And if you need to reach out to people to bounce things off and to get a bit of sanity, not that we're all experts, but we're just peer support, we're friends to help out, feel free to drop us an email at that email, support@JWsurvey.org. We can help. Or, of course, we mentioned before, recovering from religion. Again, another great place where we can get support when we're starting to think outside of that bubble and question the affiliation to an organization.
Yeah. And recently I fielded a couple of emails from Survey where people had written in, and they're asking some of them are asking a bit more technical questions, but some people are asking questions that, that they don't realize. Oh, are you aware of the the Flock of God book? Or there's some, weird resource that's out there that we know about as a group that we're more than happy to share. So I love getting emails about or getting to respond to emails that take research, because it helps me to further realize what I already know. So don't hesitate if you have questions like that.
And I must share. Sorry, go ahead.
Says, it's my first time on Livestream, first comment ever, and Lloyd is reading it. I'm doomed. Satan is coming to get me.
Well, you're in good company. Don't worry. We'll all go down
we're
together.
All doomed, so join the club.
That's
I must share, without divulging names, we talk about people that reach out when they're in that early stage of feeling like they're drowning and waking up to the truth about the truth, and they reach out to us, and we share communications. We've had a family just recently that we've been in touch with for probably the last 4, 5, 6 months through Survey, who have gone through that whole process, the initial shock, the anger, the fear, and all of that, I guess the journey that you go through when you're questioning your beliefs. This is a family, husband, wife, 3 little children. They've now got to the point where they have thoroughly researched things. They've done this on their own with a little bit of support from ones like us. They've got to the point where they feel they can no longer in honest conscience remain part of the organization, and they've put in their disassociation letter. It's been really a privilege to be there alongside them and help them and sort of be part of that journey. We're never do we seek to influence anybody's decision or tell them what they should do. They still hold on to a faith in God of some sort, and that's completely fine too. That's up to them. Others have gone through this journey and taken it the next step to maybe question the Bible, and that's fine too. But it's really beautiful to see there's a network, and then they're able to be in touch with other people who are going on that journey. And it's just that snowball, that wave of momentum that carries on. And so it's been really beautiful to see people like that, and the joy they're getting from reclaiming their life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably one thing that you can do, even if you're kind of being policed on Zoom, I don't know what you guys think, and I'd be interested to hear in the live chat. You know, they can control whether your camera is on, and they can control whether you're wearing a shirt and tie or fancy clothes if it's a lady, but they can't control presumably where your eyes are. So if it were me, I'd probably have reading material on the screen, or I'd probably have something that's just kind of stimulating me. So yeah, you can look at me in my house if you get a kick out of doing that, you weirdos. But you can't control what I'm looking at. I mean, is that too naive? Is that what people are doing? I'd be interested to know.
We could be watching the latest Man United soccer game on the side corner of the stream, and just occasionally yell.
Why wouldn't you follow the mighty Red Devils?
I know a guy who sits in his tracksuit pants with a tie and a jacket and his slippers, and he puts earphones in so that obviously we can talk on the Zoom if you need be, but he's actually listening to your channel.
I would also have set up under the desk a foot spa. I think, you know what? If you're going to make me sit here for ages, I'm going to do it as comfortably as possible.
Yeah.
So basically, it would be shirt and tie, but then I might even just be totally naked underneath the desk and just have my feet in a foot spa.
Floats your boat.
Exactly. You know.
Oh dear.
Who knows what you're really listening to?
I mean, who knows whether that's not the case when I'm filming rebuttals? You just never know, do you?
Oh,
I'll leave that hanging there, that mental image.
I have to check in with the owner about that.
Well, it's funny, you know, that ties into with the organisation's journey into using technology. I can remember in those first few years while I was waking up and, you know, researching the truth about the truth, I was still an active ministerial servant. I was still at the meetings, sitting on the sound box, taking care of assignments. I had my iPad there for all intents and purposes. I was following along with the program, but I was actually communicating with others who were going through the journey of waking up on forums and watching other things. Of course,
you were in the Kingdom Hall on forums.
Yeah.
Did you not? Did that not slightly diminish your enjoyment of being on the forum, knowing that at any moment someone could look over your shoulder?
Well, where I sat at the back of the sound box, I was in a corner so no one could see.
You had your angles all sorted, did you?
Oh, yeah. But it was actually perfect because I would be typing things like, can you believe the talk? They just said this statement, and get instant replies and validation and support from others. So it was really nice to know that, you know, we weren't alone while you're going through that process. But yeah, was that duplicitous? Probably. Was that the only way I could keep sane? Yes.
Well, isn't this the problem, though? Because they're routinely kind of bragging about, oh, we have millions following us. I think they did that in the very latest, in the Friday afternoon of the convention. Oh, millions are following, or it might have been the Friday morning. And they quote the kind of the membership numbers as almost as though that's proof of, you know, God's backing. Well, first of all, if it's all about numbers, then all that means is that a religion with more followers is more being supported by God than yours is. But if you're creating a situation where people feel threatened and they're only pretending to be followers so that they get to keep contact with their family members, then you can throw out any number you want. It's not a real number. Because you don't know what percentage of that millions are actually only in it because they're forced to be in it, you know?
Yeah. And I also remember There was
Sorry, I was just
a
going to say it probably would still be millions, but it wouldn't necessarily be 8.5 million. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And the other thing is that, we don't know. I remember there was a brother years and years ago when I was just about to be baptized, and he said to me, even if this is not the truth, even if we've got it completely wrong, isn't it just a great organization to be part of? Such a social aspect, and obviously I wonder where his head was at, but in retrospect, but like there's probably a percentage of people as well who know it's rubbish, but they just enjoy the community. It's their friends. It's, it's their circumstances would be that they probably know it's not true, and they're not really following the organization. They're following their congregation.
Yes.
I often wonder how many people are like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, Kim. But then the thing I would push back in a polite or dignified way would be, you might have your sense of community. Let's face it, that's what religion. That's what humans need. Humans need that community and connection, whether it's a sporting team or a religious group or whatever. But look at what it's depriving them of the ability to do. An organisation that actively discourages higher education, actively discourages bettering yourself and becoming, using your skills and talents. An organisation that actively stifles social interaction for children at school and sports groups and so forth. So, it might give them some sense of community, but it also deprives them of a lot of very beneficial things that humans need.
You've triggered me. Thank you for that.
Forehead says protesting ? And Madjock2112 raises a very valid point. Need trousers on as you need to stand for the songs. Don't take my advice earlier of not wearing anything below your shirt if you do need to stand for the song, which seems to be the case.
Madjock, I think it's about the angle of the camera.
That's right.
As you stand up, you do this.
Yeah,
that's right. Speaking of songs,
it depends on the
creative
camera.
About it.
It depends on the camera angle and also your body dimensions.
Yes.
So if you're willing to put the time in, it's conceivable that you could have the best of both worlds. Let's just
maybe they get them to stand up for the song so that Tony can check out if they've got tight pants on.
Oh, Tony would like that. Now, speaking of songs, Lloyd, have you got your guitar ready for that song that you promised us a couple of episodes back? You were going to grace the viewers.
No, I don't, I'm afraid. Well, I do have a guitar in my house. It's just not tuned. But on a future show, I'll certainly give it a go. We will not be having the Last Days live stream, obviously, today. What I've decided to do is... Sorry, not the Last Days live stream, the Last Days quiz.
Yep.
I've decided to make that a Saturdays only thing because it does take a lot of time to prepare the questions.
And also, I am terrible at it.
And I'm also thinking as well, if I have it like literally twice a week, I'm pretty much... I mean, I know that there's an almost indefinite supply of embarrassing quotes in Watchtower literature, but I'm wondering how quickly I'll go through them if I'm literally, without duplicating, if I'm literally using these quotes twice a week. So I think it's best to make it a weekly thing. So it will be on...
And Arthur shouldn't get to be Arthur's Nights because he didn't sing my song.
Maybe until Arthur does your song, I should be docking Arthur's Nights points.
I think that's 10 points a game until Arthur sings my song.
Wow, the gauntlet has been thrown down, and Sasha, obviously a regular crusader, it might be said, for Arthur's Nights. So, reaction, Sasha, do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I do. I want Arthur to do it. Come on, bring it, Arthur.
You've been told, Arthur. I'm going to have to mark you. You're marked.
Okay.
We'll have a marking talk next week.
Stand up for the song takes a whole new meaning. Great advice, Lloyd. Yeah, just check your angles. And a lot depends on your physiology, quite frankly.
Well, the camera adds 10 pounds. It's always been said, right? So,
Yeah, depending on what your objectives are on presenting yourself online, it may be advantageous. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up. But it's been an absolute pleasure getting together with you both. It's a frantic month this month, I must say, with the JW convention rebuttals, and I'm also doing lots of work for ICSA Lots going on behind the scenes, but it's all made easier by my splendid team, by the JWsurvey team and the Truth About the Truth team. We all kind of give each other moral support, and it's nice to have you guys represented so well here. So thank you for your insights.
Thank you. It was great to hang out with everyone. And again, like we say many times, it's not about us. It's about everybody that logs on and watches and all of their comments. And we're all in this together as a big team.
Yeah.
And just a reminder that if you want to leave a voicemail, we will receive voicemails at this address. You can also send in an unlisted YouTube video. We had 2 of them on Saturday's show. That's the address you need to send it to. And we also have an address for those of you who are in need of support. We've mentioned it earlier. If you are struggling with anxiety or feelings of loss, and you just need someone to speak to or share your story with, Sasha is monitoring that email address, and I know Kim has been involved in responding to a number of emails as well. So that's the address to use.
And I just want to say, I don't know if everyone's aware, my personal situation is very difficult at the moment. My father-in-law is in the very late stages of his life, and I've found the need to reach out and get support from someone. So a big shout out to ST, also known as the CLUT man. So shout out to him. And, so I found that really helpful for me to be able to reach out and get some help. So don't suffer in silence. We're all helping each other out.
Indeed.
Well said.
And Eric says, will we break into discussion groups now to discuss today's material? If you could do that, that would be appreciated. So, viewers, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Please remember, stay safe, stay positive, and we will see you on our next show. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.